Hello, 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 TM24 here, and we are back with some more Marvel Snap content. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, you know how this is gonna go. I've got a disruption deck for y'all, and I'm gonna go through some gameplay. We're gonna talk about the deck a little bit, how you win, some cool playlines you can take, and then we're gonna talk about some potential cards that you can include if you wanna take this deck in a little bit different direction. But for now, let's get right into the gameplay. Alright, so you've seen the intro, you know that this is a disruption deck. Now you are going to see some gameplay. So I'll just talk you through my plays here and why I'm making the plays that I am. As you can see here, we had the collapsed mine on 1, which makes it really tough to play anything. We didn't have anything to play anyway, so ultimately not a big deal. Now, with Central Park coming out, board space is already going to be a problem. We can definitely take advantage of that with a card like Debris, throwing even more rocks out there, putting Green Goblin on their side, and cards like Ant-Man all of a sudden have a ton more value because the board space is so limited. So here I'm thinking maybe it's time to get Debris down. I was kind of worried that they were going to eat up that collapsed mine lane, and that's exactly what they did. Venom came down, brought out Winter Soldier, but we do put Debris down anyway. Now, turn 4 comes around, we have a couple options. I really like Green Goblin into that collapsed mine lane, simply because they've already got 3 cards there. Chances are they aren't going to play on it on this turn, so we can feel pretty safe about putting Green Goblin there. Now, it's definitely a risk, but it's one we're willing to take, knowing that they probably don't want to fill that lane completely on 4. So that's what we end up doing. Green Goblin comes down. We're also going to toss Ant-Man into Central Park, since we need to use all of our power to make sure that we can win this game. Now, they go pretty heavy into Warrior Falls, putting Wolverine and Death there. Those squirrels are going to go away. Not a big deal, but all of a sudden, we are looking really nicely in the collapsed mine. But that doesn't mean that's necessarily the route we're going to go. We have armor, we have Viper, we have Titania, but really we've got to figure out the best play for us here. So we're taking our time. Ultimately, we do go Spider-Woman into the collapsed mine. Now, Nova comes down with Killmonger, which actually frees up some space, and that's a really nice play for them, buffing everything that they've got over there. Now, we did play Spider-Woman, so it is going to affect those cards with negative power, putting Winter Soldier, Venom, and Green Goblin back down. Now, they flip Wolverine into Central Park thanks to Warrior Falls, but now it's really tough on us. We need to make a winning play here. Now we need to figure out what our opponent's doing. Considering they already have 2 lanes, I'm thinking they are for sure going to play in the collapsed mines. So all we have to do is stop that play and take Central Park, and we read it perfectly. Noel comes down, we delete that with Shang-Chi, Titania takes Central Park, and we get a huge victory with a nice comeback play right there. All right, right on to the next game here. X-Mansion, again, filling board space, which actually works out fairly well for us. Now, we have a couple of turn 2 options in Spider-Ham and Black Widow. I like playing Widow simply because they are forced to play that Widow's Bite, and it takes away a draw from them. So forcing them to not draw can be very, very beneficial. In this instance, though, we decided to go Spider-Ham into the Gamma Lab. Now, the reason we did that was because we didn't want to give them that free Widow's Bite into the Gamma Lab. So instead, we're going to play Black Widow there on turn 3, give them that Widow's Bite so that they can't get the value out of it in Gamma Lab, whereas now we are going to have 2 Hulks compared to them having none as of right now. So Black Widow comes down, they get the Widow's Bite. They do send a Green Goblin over onto our side in the X-Mansion, which is a little bit tough. We end up getting a Bishop, they get a Cable. Ultimately, not too bad of an outcome for us, but now we know, hey, we're way ahead in Gamma Lab. We kind of need to protect those. It is turn 4, so I'm a little bit worried about Shang-Chi, but I don't have a way to protect it right now. So instead, we just go Viper, hoping to send that Green Goblin over. If we send the Bishop, not ideal, but not the end of the world. So we just play Viper and then get ready. We see 2 cards come down on Gamma Lab, so we know it's not Shang-Chi, but we didn't know that. Widow's Bite was a 0 cost, so it totally could have been. Instead, it was Luke Cage, and that's fine. Now, we are way ahead. We draw armor, which is perfect. So we get armor down, and we're thinking about Debris. Now, we are way behind in the X Mansion, thanks to us actually tossing them a bishop. But we're able to completely fill that X Mansion for them, and we still have a shot. But because Bishop is going to continue to grow throughout the course of the game with every card that they play, we know we've got to do something a little bit different. So Spider-Woman could come down, bringing them down -4 there, but I am worried that they're going to be able to play a few cards that might put them over the hump there. So ultimately, we decided to go Spider-Woman and Titania into the Dark Dimension. Now, we hit only a rock, but it didn't matter because they have Luke Cage. Ironheart comes out, and it's going to buff up their cards, and then they play Hazmat as well, followed by an Absorbing Man. But ultimately, it is not enough. We picked the right locations, and we get another big victory right there. Now we're on to our third and final game here. As you can see, the game plan is all about disruption, and Sinister London is going to make that very, very easy for us. Green Goblin all of a sudden becomes an automatic play on turn 3. We've got armor if we want to make sure that Green Goblin sticks, and that is the route that we're thinking about taking here. Ultimately, armor does come down. Fairly easy play. They snap right away, and we're kind of curious. We're wondering what they could have already in their hand that makes them think they're going to win this. They play an Invisible Woman, so I'm thinking some sort of a Patriot or Cerebro style deck, and we are definitely going to mess with that thanks to Green Goblin, and armor actually turns out perfectly. We hit the Onslaught Citadel, and of course Sinister London, and then we pick up Black Widow as well. Now, we don't want to eat up too much of our own board space, so we're going to put Black Widow down first. Now, we decide to go with Titania early so that when we bring Green Goblin on next turn, ideally we can eat up both of those locations so that they can't play anything there. That means that on turn 6, we'd be able just to play one card, flip Titania back, and we'd have a fairly easy victory. Now, they did end up playing a card here, but this is a really nice interaction. Green Goblin always goes first, so Titania is going to stay on our side, and we don't have to worry about it flipping. Now, we couldn't say the same for Nova Roma. As you see there, they get both Green Goblin and Titania on their side of the board. But we can still do some damage. We've got Spider-Ham, Ant-Man is ready to come down, and we're even considering Viper onto that Black Widow, which is ultimately the play that we end up making. Now, the reason we redid that was to make sure the order was correct. We want Viper to come down first in case it throws Black Widow over, and instead of throwing something like Ant-Man, if Ant-Man ends up going into Nova Roma. Ant-Man hits Sinister London and Onslaught Citadel, which is kind of perfect for us. Now we have a nice and easy Spider-Woman for turn 6. They already have -3 Green Goblin there. We're ahead in Nova Roma. We're ahead in Onslaught Citadel. We're just hoping that they don't have too much power that can come down on 6. And we are curious as to what is hiding behind both of those Invisible Womans. So we're just waiting for them to make a play, hoping that our Spider-Woman is going to bring it home for us here. Our opponent is clearly taking their time. They think that they are still in this game. We know that we are in a pretty good spot. A lot of power able to come down, but they want to make sure they're thinking through every little detail, and we're just waiting for them at this point. And they are really taking their time here, really running down the clock. I could tell that they were considering just backing out here, retreating, but because they snapped, ego play here where they decided to stick into this game. So another little tip there for y'all, even if you snap, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to stay in the game. You can just let it go and take the -2 cubes. In this case, it's going to be 4 that's going to come through and end up taking out our opponent if he ever decides to make a play, which ultimately he does. Spider-Woman comes down. It hits the 2 lanes that we want Spider-Woman to hit. All they play is a pig on turn 6, and now we see what's hiding. It's Patriot. They get 2 copies of that. Mystique is going to copy Patriot. So really, it's a super nice play. Even Blue Marvel comes down, but as you can see, we were way too far ahead in Sinister London for them to do any real damage. Alright, so you've seen some gameplay. Now let's talk about this deck a little bit. Obviously, this is a disruption deck. What we're trying to do is make it as difficult as possible for our opponent to win. Now, there's a couple different ways that we can do that, and I'm going to toss a graphic up here on the screen, and you can see exactly how we are going to win these games. First up, we're going to answer some serious threats. We've got Shang-Chi to take out huge power on the board, and we've got Spider-Ham to stop it in its tracks before it even gets started. So that's step one, answering some of those big threats. Then we're going to work on locking them out. So we've got a few tools to do this. One, we've got Black Widow. They are going to be forced to play that Widow's Bite, eating up a board space that does absolutely nothing for them. Then we've got Viper. We can toss over a -3 Hood, or we can use Debris and then toss over a Rock, really eating up that board space, making it tough for them to get any sort of power going. And then finally, we've got Disruption, right? And what do I mean by that? Black Widow definitely can kind of fit in that role of Disruption. So can something like Green Goblin, who is also eating up that board space. But don't be surprised by Armor. Ton of Destroy decks coming around as well. Armor coming through, locking them, preventing them from destroying those cards. Additionally, we can lock, the lane that we send the Hood over, or the lane that Green Goblin is in. We can make it really, really tough for them to win on multiple lanes. Additionally, we've got Spider-Woman ready to come down and afflict them with some negative power. Ideally, you want to do that on 5, so that on 6, you can play a couple of different cards. You could play Ant-Man, Titania, and, a Debris or a Shang-Chi, depending on how much power you have and what you are looking to do. Additionally, if you get the Hood down, you're going to have a 1/6 Demon. So your turn 6 could look something like Demon, Titania, Shang-Chi to destroy a huge power source. It could be Ant-Man, Demon, Titania, Armor. You could just kind of pick and choose where you want to go on that turn 6. So, like I said, ideally you want to lock up a lane by 5 so that on 6 you can focus on winning that other lane. Now, there are a couple of cool plays that will definitely help you doing this. One of my favorites is actually going Titania and Green Goblin on 4. Now, what that is going to do, if they've got 2 cards in that lane, that is going to take up both of those slots, so that all you have to do on turn 6 is play 1 card, you get Titania back, and it's going to be really tough for them to win that lane. Additionally, going Debris into Viper on 5 feels nice as well. Again, you're eating up 2 slots, so it feels awesome doing that, really forcing your opponent to play where you want them to play. Now, there are some other cards that you can include in this deck if you want to go a different direction. Let's talk about those right now. As you can see, I've got Doc Ock up here. Now, he's going to pull a bunch of cards from your opponent's hand onto the board. That's stopping them from playing them the way that they want to do that. Now, it's probably better to play something like Wave with Doc Ock so that you can get it out early. Obviously, then we're filling up that board space, and then something like Spider-Woman could come down on 5. But as you can see, we don't have Wave in this list, which is why I didn't put Doc Ock in it. Some other inclusions. Mojo. We're typically going to fill at least 1 lane completely for them. So all of a sudden, Mojo becomes a 2/8, which is incredibly strong. So he would fit really nicely in this list as well. And then we've got a couple of really big cards. We've got Valkyrie, who I personally love a ton. Being able to turn all your weak cards into some strong ones, and follow that up with a, something like a Demon, going Valkyrie on 5 or on 6, followed by a Demon. Everything's at 3 in that lane except for your Demon. All of a sudden you flip that lane. Additionally, if you Valkyrie something like Ant-Man, it's going to be stronger, and chances are you're going to win that lane. So I really like Valkyrie, but the reason I didn't include her in this list was simply because I didn't want this list to be too costly. I wanted to keep as few cards, as low of cards as possible, so that on 6 we could play 3-4 cards depending on what we needed to do. So, a couple other cards that we could include. Sentry, putting a -10 Void into that far right lane. All of a sudden has really nice synergy with Viper. If we don't hit Viper, you could Carnage it, you could Carnage Hood, things like that. So Sentry makes a ton of sense in this list as well. And then we have Gamora. Gamora, is almost a perfect fit because you are forcing your opponent to play in specific lanes, meaning your Gamora is almost always going to hit. So playing Gamora next to a Demon or Gamora next to a Titania or Ant-Man, if that lane is going to be full, can be absolutely huge and really flip that lane for you. But again, I wanted to keep the cost down. I wanted to focus on winning a lane by 5 with Spider-Woman, and then coming back on 6 with something like a Shang-Chi, Titania, and Demon to finish off the other lane. Additionally, we have one other card that I figure you could include in here that definitely fits the theme of this deck, and that's going to be Iceman. We're trying to disrupt, so we're hitting something in their hand, making it more costly, making it really tough for them to play that card. So Iceman kind of fits perfectly, but I really like the 1-drops we have in here. I feel like it has better synergy than just tossing Iceman in there. But if you don't have something like Titania, Iceman might not be a bad inclusion because you feel pretty good just playing him on 1 and getting that value early. But now you've seen the deck, you've seen how you're supposed to win, you've seen some potential cards you can include. Let me know what you guys think. If you feel like we should play something else, put it in the comments below. Be more than happy to take a look at it and see if we can make this deck even better. If you've hung around till now, I really do appreciate you watching the whole video, as it really does help me out. If you haven't subscribed or liked yet, now would be a good time to do so. And until next time, have some fun.